We live in a world that celebrates noise, a world where being seen often feels more important than being useful, where likes are mistaken for love and followers are mistaken for influence, where people chase attention like it's oxygen, desperate to be noticed, desperate to be admired. But the truth is, attention is temporary, growth is permanent. Let me ask you this: what's the end game? What happens after the applause dies? After the spotlight moves to someone else? After the crowd gets bored and scrolls on? You see, when you build your life around attention, you surrender your identity to the approval of others. You become reactive, constantly adjusting yourself to be what people want to see instead of who you are meant to become. That's a dangerous place to live because attention doesn't equal impact. Validation doesn't equal value. Visibility doesn't equal growth. Growth is the opposite of attention. Growth happens in the shadows. It happens when no one is clapping for you. When you're showing up day after day with consistency and integrity, when you're practicing your craft with discipline, when no one is watching, that's real progress. And here's the uncomfortable truth: growth is quiet. It doesn't always get recognition. It's slow. It's often unseen. It demands patience, humility, and a willingness to be overlooked. We live in a culture that idolizes visibility. The more people notice you, the more relevant you're perceived to be. It's a world where we're constantly bombarded by highlights, edited moments of success, perfectly curated images, and calculated posts designed to grab attention. But attention is not the same as meaning, and it certainly isn't the same as growth. The thing about attention is that it feels good. When people notice you, praise you, or applaud you, it validates something deep within you. It gives you a rush, a feeling of importance, even if it's only for a moment. But that's exactly the problem. It's temporary. Attention is borrowed energy. It comes and goes, and it's never fully in your control. You may be trending today, forgotten tomorrow. Someone else will always come along who's louder, flashier, or more exciting. And that's the trap. If you build your identity around being noticed, you'll spend your life chasing approval instead of chasing purpose. You'll tailor your actions not to what's right, but to what's popular. You'll measure your success by metrics instead of meaning. And when the applause fades, which it always does, you'll be left empty, wondering what it was all really for. Growth, on the other hand, is entirely different. Growth doesn't ask for attention. It doesn't need validation. It's quiet, sometimes lonely, and often slow, but it's real, it's lasting. When you grow, you evolve from the inside out. You become stronger, wiser, more capable. You build habits that no one sees, develop skills that take years to master, and make sacrifices that don't look glamorous but are deeply meaningful. Unlike attention, growth isn't something that can be taken from you. No one can cancel your growth. No one can unlike your character, your discipline, or your work ethic. Growth gives you roots. It makes you resilient. It prepares you for life, not just for the moment. When you chase attention, your value becomes external. You only feel good if others think you're good. But when you chase growth, your value becomes internal. You gain confidence from progress, not praise. You begin to trust yourself, not because someone told you to, but because you've done the work to become worthy of that trust. There's also a deeper kind of joy that comes with growth. It's not loud, but it's steady. It's not exciting in the way attention is, but it's fulfilling. There's something powerful about becoming better than who you were yesterday. Something peaceful about knowing you're building something that matters, even if no one sees it yet. And yes, growth takes longer. It requires patience. It requires you to show up on days when it's hard, when no one is clapping, and when it would be easier to chase a shortcut. But shortcuts don't build character. Shortcuts don't build legacy. What matters takes time. Look at the people who've built lives of real impact. They didn't get there because they were chasing the spotlight. They got there because they focused on the process. They prioritized becoming over being seen. And eventually the world noticed, not because they begged for it, but because they earned it. If you're constantly feeling the pressure to be seen, to perform, or to prove yourself, take a step back. Ask yourself, am I chasing attention or am I chasing growth? Am I building something solid or am I trying to impress people who won't even remember me in a week? The truth is, no amount of attention can fill the void that a lack of growth creates. You can be popular and still feel lost. You can be admired and still feel unfulfilled. But when you commit to growth, you build a foundation that sustains you through praise, through criticism, through success, through failure. So focus on growth, invest in it, trust the process, even when it's invisible. Let go of the need to be seen and instead work on becoming someone worth seeing. Because attention is fleeting, but growth, real, deep, personal growth, is lasting. And in the long run, it's the only thing that truly matters. In a world obsessed with feedback, where every action is met with a like, a comment, a follow, or a view count, it's easy to mistake validation for value. We've been conditioned to believe that approval equals worth, that being praised means we're doing the right thing, that being noticed means we're enough. But the truth is, validation is external, and when you depend on it, you give other people control over how you feel about yourself. This is dangerous because external validation is inconsistent. One day you're praised, the next you're ignored. One moment people love you, the next moment they criticize you. If you build your confidence on applause, you'll constantly be chasing the next cheer, the next thumbs up, the next nod of approval. And when that approval doesn't come, or worse, when criticism replaces it, your self-worth crumbles. Your value cannot be based on what others say, think, or feel about you. That's not self-worth. That's borrowed worth. And anything borrowed can be taken back. Living this way is exhausting. You begin making choices not based on what's meaningful to you, but based on what will make you more likable. You water yourself down. You say yes when you mean no. You post what gets engagement instead of what reflects your truth. You become a version of yourself that's shaped by the crowd, not by your conscience. The problem is, people's approval is unpredictable. No matter how much you try to please, someone will always disapprove. Someone will always misunderstand you. Someone will always think you're not enough. If you live for their acceptance, you'll die from their rejection. It's not sustainable, and it's not real growth. It's emotional dependency dressed up as success. The only lasting sense of worth comes from within, from knowing who you are and what you stand for, even when no one is clapping. Especially when no one is clapping. When you anchor your value in your character, in your growth, in your purpose, you become unshakable. You no longer need constant reassurance because you've learned to reassure yourself. You start living based on your principles, not people's preferences. You stop asking, will they like this? And start asking, is this aligned with who I am? That's the turning point. That's where maturity begins. When you realize that being respected is better than being liked, and that being true to yourself is better than being accepted by everyone else. This doesn't mean you become arrogant or immune to feedback. It means you learn to filter feedback wisely. Not all criticism is useful. Not all praise is sincere. Growth requires you to be open, but not gullible. Receptive, but not desperate. You can listen to others without letting them define you. You can take advice without losing your direction. It's powerful to be in a room and not need to prove anything to anyone. To speak your truth and not shrink when it's met with silence. To keep moving forward even when there's no applause. That's self-respect. That's inner strength. That's value grounded in identity, not popularity. And ironically, when you stop chasing validation, people begin to respect you more. Because authenticity commands attention far more than performance does. When you stand in your truth, people may not always agree with you, but they will feel your presence. And more importantly, you will feel your own presence. You'll be able to look in the mirror and say, I didn't perform today. I lived with integrity. That kind of peace is priceless. That kind of confidence can't be bought with followers or fame. It's earned through honesty with yourself, through courage, through discipline. It's built over time, moment by moment, decision by decision. So let go of the need to be validated. You're not here to win a popularity contest. You're here to grow, to contribute, to lead a life that matters. And the people who truly matter, the ones who will walk with you long term, will see your value whether you're trending or not. Remember, validation might feel good in the short term, but self-worth will carry you through the long term. Choose the path that lasts. Choose the kind of value that no one can give you and no one can take away. Growth is often misunderstood. Many people associate it with visible milestones, promotions, accolades, recognition, applause. But the truth is, the most meaningful growth rarely happens in the spotlight. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't trend. It doesn't come with instant validation. True growth happens in the shadows, in quiet places, when no one is watching. We live in a time where visibility is often mistaken for value. If it's not posted, shared, or celebrated publicly, people think it doesn't count. But real transformation, the kind that shapes your character, strengthens your resolve, and refines your purpose, happens in solitude. It happens in the early mornings when you choose discipline over comfort. It happens in late nights spent wrestling with your own weaknesses. It happens in honest moments when you admit you were wrong and decide to change, not for applause, but for yourself. The shadows are uncomfortable. They're lonely. There's no one cheering you on there. No audience, no rewards, just you, your struggles, your effort, and your choices. And that's exactly what makes growth in those moments so powerful. Because it's real, because it's earned. Anyone can perform when they know someone's watching. Anyone can act put together when the world is paying attention. But who are you when the lights are off? Who are you when you're alone with your thoughts? Who are you when no one is expecting anything from you? That's where your foundation is built. Think about the roots of a tree. They grow deep into the soil, hidden from sight, long before the branches reach upward. Without strong roots, the tree will collapse under pressure. The same is true for people. The deeper you grow in private, the stronger you become in public. This kind of growth isn't glamorous. There are no quick wins. There's no applause for choosing patience over anger, humility over pride, or persistence over giving up. But those decisions made consistently and quietly are what shape your future. They're what build character. They're what prepare you for the weight of greater responsibility. And when the time comes for you to step into the light, you'll be ready, not because you rehearsed a performance, but because you lived through the process. You'll speak from experience, not theory. You'll lead from substance, not image. People will feel the difference, even if they can't explain it. But most people don't want to stay in the shadows. They rush the process. They want the results without the refining. They want the destination without the journey. They want the reward without the resilience. And in doing so, they sabotage their own growth. Because if you're not willing to be unseen for a season, you'll never develop the depth needed to sustain the success you're chasing. The shadows aren't punishment, they're preparation. They force you to confront your insecurities. They reveal your blind spots. They test your motivation. Are you doing this for applause, or are you doing it because it matters? When no one's watching, you're free to be honest, to fail, to learn, to adjust. You're free to ask hard questions, face hard truths, and build a stronger version of yourself. And when that version of you finally steps into view, it will be undeniable, not because of how loud you are, but because of how real you are. Growth that happens in the shadows gives you something that attention never can: depth. And depth is what carries you when pressure hits. It's what keeps you grounded when success finds you. It's what keeps you humble when people start to notice, because you'll know you didn't get here by luck or by hype. You got here through effort, patience, and a commitment to grow even when no one was watching. So don't resent the shadows. Embrace them. That's where the real work happens. That's where the roots grow. That's where your future is being formed. You don't need an audience to become excellent. You need consistency. You need intention. You need courage to keep going when it feels like no one cares. Because the truth is, the world may not see you now, but one day they will. And when they do, they'll realize you didn't just arrive, you were becoming all along. In today's culture, it's easy to confuse appearance with achievement. We've been trained to equate visibility with success, to assume that the person getting the most attention must also be the one making the most progress. But that's rarely true. There's a significant difference between having an image and having impact. There's a wide gap between looking successful and being successful. Real success, real growth, real leadership, real fulfillment is built on substance, not showcase. The problem with chasing appearances is that it's shallow. You can put on a polished front, wear the right words, display the right lifestyle, and still be completely disconnected from your purpose. You can fool the world for a while, but you can't fool yourself. And eventually, when the pressure hits or the cameras go away, what you've built on image begins to collapse. Substance is different. Substance is internal. It's what holds you up when things get difficult. It's the strength you've built through experience, through mistakes, through honest self-assessment. It's the integrity of your choices, the discipline behind your actions, and the purpose driving your path. Substance doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It doesn't demand attention because it's not performing, it's building. And what it builds lasts longer than any trend or title. When you prioritize substance, you shift from seeking to impress to seeking to improve. You stop asking, how do I look, and start asking, what am I becoming? There's a reason so many people burn out after reaching the top. They spent so much time trying to be seen that they forgot to become strong. They built platforms on pretense instead of principle. And when the pressure mounted, when the applause stopped or the criticism came, they didn't have the inner foundation to withstand it. We've all seen it happen. Someone rises quickly because they're charming, charismatic, or well-connected. But they haven't done the inner work. They haven't built substance, and so they fall. Because in the long run, substance always outlasts spectacle. You don't need a spotlight to build substance. You need intention. You need to show up every day and do the work when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when no one cares. You need to ask yourself hard questions. You need to pursue truth over comfort, integrity over popularity, consistency over applause. Building substance is unglamorous. It means choosing growth over ego. It means doing what's right, not what's easy. It means learning, failing, reflecting, and trying again. It requires patience and humility, two qualities that don't get much airtime but create long-term results. Showcase might get you attention, but it won't earn you trust. It might build an audience, but it won't build loyalty. Trust and loyalty are born out of substance. When people see who you are beneath the surface, when your actions match your words, when your motives are clear and your values are non-negotiable, people can sense the difference. They might not be able to articulate it, but they feel it. Substance has weight. It has presence. You don't need to advertise it. It speaks through how you carry yourself, how you treat others, how you respond under pressure. You might not be the loudest voice in the room, but when you speak, people listen. You might not post every achievement, but your consistency makes people pay attention. That's the power of substance. It creates impact that doesn't require hype. If you want to lead, influence, or make a lasting contribution, choose substance. Let your work speak louder than your words. Let your results echo louder than your image. Let your life be a reflection of the depth you've cultivated, not a highlight reel designed to impress strangers. It's okay if the world doesn't notice right away. Let them overlook you. Let them underestimate you. Use that space to build something real, something deep, something rooted in discipline, purpose, and service. Because the world doesn't need more performers. It needs people with character. It needs leaders who don't just look the part, they live it. It needs people who have chosen to build substance over showcase, even when no one was watching. When you make that choice, everything changes. You become the kind of person who's not just seen but remembered, not just heard but respected, not just admired but followed. That's what lasts. That's what matters. Substance over showcase. Every time. Growth doesn't happen by accident. It begins with the questions you ask yourself, the quiet reflections, the internal dialogue, the thoughts you wrestle with when no one else is around. Most people focus on outcomes. How do I get more success? How do I get noticed? How do I win? But those are the wrong starting points. They lead to comparison, distraction, and surface-level ambition. If you want to grow, truly grow, you have to ask better questions. Questions that don't just point you forward, but inward. The right question isn't, what do I need to do to get ahead? It's, what do I need to become to be ready? Because growth is not about chasing the next title or trophy. It's about becoming the kind of person who is prepared for whatever life brings. That process doesn't start with external strategy. It starts with internal honesty. The wrong questions make you reactive. You compare your journey to someone else's, trying to match their pace or replicate their methods. But the right questions keep you grounded. What did I learn from this failure? Where am I still avoiding discomfort? What's the real reason I haven't taken action? These are the questions that cut through the noise and bring clarity. When you're honest with yourself, growth becomes less about fixing what's broken and more about building what's possible. It's not about shame or guilt. It's about responsibility. You start to see that your outcomes are tied directly to your habits, your mindset, and your willingness to face the truth. Ask yourself, am I living by design or by default? Too many people move through life on autopilot, doing what's expected, chasing validation, following a path that someone else laid out for them. But growth requires intentionality. It means asking, why am I doing this? Does this align with who I want to be? What kind of impact am I actually having? These aren't easy questions. They don't always come with quick answers. But that's the point. Growth isn't about speed. It's about depth. When you take time to ask hard questions, you begin to uncover the gaps in your thinking, the blind spots in your behavior, and the fears that have been quietly steering your decisions. Most people don't grow because they never slow down long enough to reflect. They keep moving, producing, performing, hoping that more activity will somehow lead to more meaning. But growth doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing better. And better starts with being willing to pause and ask, what's really going on here? Start asking, what am I avoiding? That question alone can transform your direction. The things we avoid, whether it's discomfort, feedback, or discipline, often hold the key to the next level of our growth. When you lean into what you resist, you break through the barriers that have kept you stuck. Ask, what am I pretending not to know? There are always truths we ignore because facing them feels inconvenient or uncomfortable. But ignoring the truth doesn't make it disappear. It just delays your progress. Growth comes when you stop hiding from what you already sense deep down. And most importantly, ask, what kind of person am I becoming? Not what have I achieved, or how do others see me, but who am I when no one's watching? Because real growth isn't about image, it's about integrity. It's about closing the gap between your values and your actions. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. When you start asking better questions, you stop living on the surface. You begin to access a deeper sense of purpose, a deeper sense of identity, and a deeper capacity for impact. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be brave enough to ask the right questions, and humble enough to listen to what they reveal. Growth doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from being willing to learn, to change, and to evolve. So don't rush. Don't chase what looks impressive. Pause, reflect, dig deep. The right questions will show you where you are, where you're going, and who you need to become along the way. Because in the end, transformation isn't found in the spotlight, it's found in the questions you're willing to ask yourself in the dark. Significance is often mistaken for attention. In a world where visibility is currency, we're taught to believe that the more people who see us, the more valuable we must be. But real significance doesn't come from being seen, it comes from becoming someone worth remembering. It's not about the size of your audience, it's about the depth of your impact. And impact is never the result of popularity, it's the product of purpose. You don't become significant by being noticed. You become significant by being intentional, by building a life guided by values, fueled by discipline, and rooted in service. Too many people chase visibility while neglecting their own character. They want to be followed before they've done the work to be trusted. They want recognition before they've built something worth recognizing. But the truth is, the world doesn't need more performers. It needs people with substance.
People who live with conviction, not just ambition. You can't measure your significance by the amount of likes, shares, or followers you have. That kind of validation is shallow and temporary. It disappears as quickly as it came. But who you become, your integrity, your resilience, your courage, that's what lasts. That's what people remember when the spotlight fades. And often that transformation happens in obscurity, in private, in the quiet moments where no one's watching and no one's applauding. That's what makes it powerful. You become significant when you stop asking, who's watching me? And start asking, what kind of person am I becoming when no one's watching? Because it's in those unseen decisions, in your discipline, your consistency, your willingness to do the right thing even when it's hard, that you lay the foundation for a life that matters. Chasing attention is easy. Becoming someone of character is hard. It requires patience. It requires humility. It means saying no to shortcuts, no to pretending, no to performing just to impress. It means focusing on becoming excellent at your craft, even if no one claps. It means showing up every day not to be seen, but to serve. That's where true significance is born. When you're obsessed with being seen, your decisions become reactive. You cater to what's popular. You bend your values to match trends. You trade your authenticity for applause. But when you're focused on becoming, on learning, growing, and refining, you build something that no one can take away from you. Significance is not about being ahead of everyone else. It's about being aligned with your purpose. It's about doing what you're called to do, even if it goes unnoticed. Because the truth is, the most influential people in the world didn't start with visibility. They started with vision. They didn't wait to be noticed. They chose to lead themselves first. They became the kind of people whose actions spoke louder than their image. And you can do the same. You don't need everyone to see you. You need to see yourself clearly. You need to know who you are, what you value, and what you're building, so that when the attention finally comes, you're not shaken by it. You're ready for it. Because you didn't build your identity on applause. You built it on purpose. The irony is, the more you focus on becoming someone of value rather than someone who's seen, the more people will eventually take notice. Not because you demanded it, but because value is hard to ignore. People are drawn to authenticity, to consistency, to strength of character. They trust people who've done the work in the dark and now stand strong in the light. So if you find yourself in a season where no one's noticing you, where your efforts feel unseen, don't resent it. Embrace it. That's the training ground. That's where real transformation happens. Let that space refine you. Let it teach you to lead yourself. Let it build a foundation so solid that when the spotlight does come, it doesn't change you, it just reveals you. Because in the end, it's not the applause that matters, it's the legacy. It's not who saw you, it's who you became. And when you focus on becoming someone of substance, your significance will speak for itself loudly, clearly, and long after the noise has faded.